I'm going to talk about antigen-antibody interaction. First, before I discuss about the antigen-antibody interaction, I will briefly tell you about the antigen and the antibody. Then I will talk about the mechanism of interaction. So, antigens are broadly classified into two types, that is, particulate antigens and soluble antigens. The particulate antigens are bacterial cell, viral particle, cells. Cells could be bone marrow cells or cells of any tissue origin. Basically, the particulate antigen has a shape because a cell has a outer boundary and cytoplasm or outer boundary with some nucleic acid inside, like as in the case of viral particle. So, since cells are made up of different organic molecules, the surface of the cell or the molecules that are within the cell become the antigens. So, therefore, those antigens are called as particulate antigens. The soluble antigens are those which could be simple proteins, glycoproteins, glycolipids, or nucleoproteins. These could be the components from the cellular origin, and they could be present in the aqueous medium as soluble components. Altogether, the antigens are organic molecules. Similarly, the antibodies are produced in the body against the antigens by specialized cells as a defense mechanism, and these antibodies are always glycoproteins and found in the serum or the plasma of a person, and they'll be circulating in the body, and whenever they come in contact with the antigen, they bind to the antigen, similar to the mechanism how the enzyme binds to the substrate. Overall, if you say the antigen-antibody interaction, it is just like a protein-protein interaction or like an enzyme-substrate interaction. Generally, since the antibodies are soluble organic molecules, they can react with particulate antigens to form an agglutinated mass, or they can react with soluble antigens to form a precipitate, and that reaction is called as precipitin reaction. And when they form the agglutination of the particulate antigen, it is called as agglutination reaction. Just to give an example of antigens, on the bacterial cell, you can see that the antigen could be consisting of the mucopolysaccharide capsid surrounding the plasma membrane of the bacteria, which is called as VI antigen in this diagram. Similarly, it could be membrane bound antigen, which could be called as O antigen, and the flagella of the bacteria, which is called as flagellin, is called as H antigen. All these are present in the bacteria, could be recognized as antigenic epitopes or determiners, and antibodies will be produced against these individually and recognize these molecules like H antigen or O antigen or VI antigen as independent entities by the antibody and cause agglutination of the bacterial cell. Then, if we take a typical viral particle, the viral particle will have the spike protein, then it could have the membrane and the membrane proteins as M, and then the nucleoproteins in the form of nucleic acid associated with the protein, then the enzyme that is associated with the membrane for the virus to enter the host cell, like hemagglutinin esterase here in this example, and the envelope small membrane proteins which are concerned with the envelope or the protein coat of the virus, like this. Now, each of these, once again, in the virus could help as antigens and recognized as antigens and antibody produced against the spike protein will not be reacting with membrane protein. So membrane protein antigen will be different in chemical characteristics compared to the spike protein. So that means spike protein, glycoprotein, acts as one antigenic determiner, membrane protein acts as another antigenic determiner. So nucleoproteins will act as another antigenic determiner, like that. So antibodies produced against the virus will be against these antigens at any given time when the virus infects a person. Therefore, many antibodies of different types against a particular antigen. Antigen as a whole, now you say virus itself is an antigen, which is a particulate antigen consisting of different chemical components and each of them acting as antigens, stimulating the antibody production. So therefore, those antibodies will be in different types. So typically, then antigen-antibody reaction takes place due to chemical interaction. Now here on your left hand side, you have antigen molecule. On the right hand side, antibody molecule. So the interactions that typically take place between antigen antibody have been shown by chemical interaction. The first simplest type of interaction that could take place is by hydrogen bonding, because both these molecules are organic. They would definitely contain OH groups, COH groups, okay, H as an exposed element. So because of that, the OH reaction or OH-H reaction would result in hydrogen bonding. Then there could be possibility of NH2 groups or NH3 groups exposed which interact with the COO group. That will result in the formation of a salt bridge. COO group reacting with NH3 group, forming the salt bridge, which is called as ionic bond. Ionic bond is the strongest bond that you can see between the antigen and the antibody. One thing you note, there is no covalent interaction in the antigen-antibody interaction. Whatever the interactions that take place are weak interactions, but ionic bond is the strongest bond that could take place between antigen and the antibody. Similarly, most weakest interaction would be hydrophobic interaction, where hydrophobic groups which are exposed on the surface of the antibody and the antigen could interact with one another, forming a hydrosphere around them, and that would be hydrophobic interaction. Here they have shown interaction between CH3 groups of both antigen and the antibody. Similarly, it could involve simple van der Waals forces or Coulomb's forces, which are also weaker compared to ionic bond. So, mechanism of interaction between antigen and antibody is nothing but chemical interaction between the functional chemical groups that are present in the antigen and the antibody. As I had mentioned earlier, the antigen could be a protein, or it could be a glycoprotein or nucleoprotein. Okay, so they would definitely contain the functional groups like OH, NH3, CH3, COH, all these groups. Similarly, antibody being a glycoprotein, it would have amino acids, and those amino acids could have COO group exposed or NH2 group exposed, and these are the interaction that facilitates the antigen-antibody interaction, which is a chemical interaction. Now, as I had mentioned earlier, more the number of interactions between the antigen and the antibody, the interaction becomes stronger and stronger. But a given antibody can interact with antigen with two of its sites. There are two sites on the antibody that can interact with the antigen, and those sites are called as fragment of antigen binding sites. And these fragment of antigen binding sites in short form are called as FAB site of the antibody. The FAB site of the antibody can interact with the antigen, and that interaction is similar to this chemical interaction. Let us presume that the FAB site of the antibody having the ionic residue as well as a hydrogen bond forming residue, that will interact to give rise to that antibody antigen interaction, and that antigenic domain that interacts with the FAB site is called as antigenic epitope or antigenic determiner, and that determines the affinity of the antigen. And affinity of the antigen is determined by how many sites of the antigen will bind to the FAB site of the antibody. Okay, so more the affinity, greater will be the avidity. Avidity is degree of interaction, means stronger the interaction, that is stronger the affinity, greater will be the avidity. Now in this left hand diagram, they have shown the interaction of the antigen antibody with only one epitope. One can consider this as weak affinity. Compared to the second diagram, that is the middle diagram, where two epitopes of the antigens are simultaneously binding the FAB site of the antibody, which is stronger than the previous one. Now, if you go to the third diagram, that is to the extreme right, you will see that many antibody molecules are interact with different antigenic determiners. And these antibody molecules need not be of the same specific epitopes. These antibody molecules are not recognizing the same epitope or same determiner. Like as I had mentioned in my earlier slide, where you had seen that the bacterial antigen, that is VI antigen, O antigen and H antigen, can independently be recognized, or in the case of virus, S, that is spike glycoprotein, M, membrane protein or nucleoprotein, or hemagglutinin esterase, or the envelope small membrane protein E, can be recognized as individual antigenic determiners, and the antibodies produced against that can interact like as shown in the right hand diagram, and that will result in strong avidity, very strong avidity. At the same time, it is also strong affinity. So the antigen antibody interaction is determined by number of interactions that take place between the epitope or the antigenic determiner with the antibody, and the antibody that has the FAB site specific for that antigen will interact with the antigen at the epitope or determiner region only, and this reaction is highly specific, and it is as good as you can compare with lock and key mechanism or the enzyme substrate reaction. So now affinity is just binding of the antigen with the antibody through an epitope, but strength of the affinity or strength of the avidity is determined by number of interaction. Greater the interaction, stronger will be the avidity, stronger will be the affinity. So that all is determined by the antigenic determinants. But at the same time, remember, the interaction could be a very weak interaction, like the hydrophobic interaction. The hydrophobic interactions or van der Waals interactions are very, very weak interactions. So these weak interactions, if they happen many times like this, that would increase the avidity or increase the affinity. Or if the interaction takes place like this with the hydrophobic interaction, as shown in the left hand side, it will be very, very weak interaction. But if the antigen antibody interaction involves the ionic bond interactions, and many such type of interactions take place, ionic interactions, and as a result you will get this type of interaction, that is as shown in the right hand side, many ionic bond interactions, that will be the strongest affinity or strongest avidity. But still these ionic bonds can be broken by changing the pH. Therefore, I had mentioned that The antigen-antibody interaction does not involve covalent interaction. It is always ionic or weak van der Waals forces or hydrophobic interactions or hydrogen bonds. So, number of interactions determine the avidity and affinity. So, on the basis of that, you can classify the antigen-antibody reaction into a strong reaction, moderate reaction, weak reaction, and based on that the antigen-antibody reaction may give rise to, if it is a particulate antigen, strong agglutination, good amount of agglutinated mass of cells, or weak agglutination where very few cells will be agglutinated. Whereas in the case of precipitin reaction, that is the interaction between soluble antigen and the soluble antibody, it would give rise to a strong, good amount of precipitate if the interaction is stronger. So here, to give you an example of the different types of antigenic determinants interaction and agglutination reaction, and here you can differentiate the antigenic determinants by the color. They have shown it by color code. It is the same antigenic molecule. Let us presume that this is a bacterial cell. Let us compare that red colored labeling as H antigen. Let us take the blue colored labeling as the O antigen, okay, and the gray colored one as VI antigen. Now you see the interactions that are taking place here. The antibody produced recognizing the antigenic determiner, the H antigen, will interact with the H antigen only, and the antibody produced against the O antigen will interact with the O antigen, and antibody produced against the VI antigen will interact with the VI antigen, and they are not exchanged among themselves, even though it is the same bacteria which is showing three different epitopes or the determinants, antigenic determinants, and these determinants are individually recognized in the body to produce the antibodies, and those antibodies are produced simultaneously against these antigenic determinants, and they are produced at the same time. Therefore, they interact with the pathogen or the bacteria at the same time, and this type of interaction is called as polyclonal antibody interaction. Means these are the antibodies which are polyclonal, means each have a different clonal origin. They are formed from different types of B cells. Each has its own clone of B cell, but they all act together at the same time. They can be belonging to the same class of the antibody and bring about agglutination reaction. So this type of reaction where strong agglutination has taken place, that means more than one antibody has been recognizing the antigenic determinants on the surface of the antigen, that is the particulate antigen, that is the bacteria, and causing the agglutination reaction. And this can be considered as strong affinity and strong avidity. Now coming to another type of interaction, that is called as monoclonal antibody interaction. Here, one of the antigenic determiner is recognized, other two are not recognized. That means monoclonal antibodies are generally produced artificially in the tissue culture. They are not produced in the body. Whenever the antibodies are produced in a body of an individual, they are always polyclonal, and that serum will contain different types of antibody, polyclonal antiserum. Say for example, when you go for a coronavirus example, if you take this as a coronavirus, a given coronavirus will have these antigens, and individual will produce the antibody against all these antigens which have been labeled here, which I explained to you earlier. Now coming to the monoclonal antibody, they will be produced purposefully against one of the antigenic determiner, and they are used for only diagnostic purpose or for the treatment of cancer. Say for example, if you want to use the monoclonal antibody treatment for the cancer, you have to recognize a particular antigen on the cancer cell, and that antigen will be antigenic determiner, and use that antigen to stimulate the production of the monoclonal antibody using hybridoma technology, and that monoclonal antibody produced will be recognizing that antigen. Now you use this monoclonal antibody by labeling with radioisotope or a chemotherapeutic drug which is being attached to this antibody. That antibody, monoclonal antibody, goes and binds to the cancer cell at that particular antigenic determiner or epitope and delivers that radioisotope or the radiation there locally to the cancer cells, or chemotherapeutic drug to the cancer cell. Therefore, it will help in killing the cancer cell. So monoclonal antibodies are artificially produced. They are meant for recognition of one particular antigen, which does not happen in the natural process of antibody production in a human being. In the human being, always it will be polyclonal anti-serum. Now coming to the another important aspect of the antigen antibody reaction. Whenever the reaction of antigen antibody takes place, the concentration of both of them should be ideally equal. If they are equal, then only you will get an equivalence zone. That is, the antigen and antibody interaction will be appropriate and maximum amount of interaction will take place, and you may get a good amount of agglutination or good amount of precipitate formation with soluble antigen and soluble antibody complex. Okay, and that is termed as equivalence zone. Equivalence zone refers to the concentration of antigen and the antibody equal. Whenever the concentration of any one of them is very high, then the possibility of formation of agglutination or possibility of formation of precipitate is very, very less, because it leads to formation of a soluble complex because of excess of one of them. So to understand that, one can plot a concentration graph where you can use the concentration of antigen on the x-axis and the amount of precipitate formed, which can be determined from the optical density, on the y-axis by using soluble antigen antibody complex. Okay, soluble antigen antibody. So initially the concentration of antigen is 0. Okay, now you have a known concentration of antibody taken in a test tube, and you have different test tubes into which you will add different concentration of antigens. As you start increasing the concentration of antigens in each of those test tubes, the precipitate formation starts increasing in this manner, and it will reach a point which will be the point called as equivalence zone, where the concentration of antigen and antibody is maximum. Okay, in the test tube you have taken different concentration of antigens to which you are adding the unknown concentration of the antibody. As you start adding the antibody and take the optical density, it starts increasing steadily and come to a point where it will reach an equivalence zone where the concentration of antigen and antibody is equal. So therefore, in the initial stage, when the antigen concentration is low, as you start adding the antibody concentration is more. Then a point will be reached, equivalence zone, where the antigen antibody concentration is equal. Then it will move on to the other area where the concentration of antigen starts increasing, because you have increased the concentration of antigen and the concentration of antibody that you are adding is the same in all the tubes. So therefore, in the other zone, the concentration of antigen becomes excess and the antibody concentration is less. So that is how diagrammatically it is shown here on the top. When the antigen is excess and the antibody is low, there will be no precipitation reaction or no agglutination reaction. Similarly, when the antibody concentration is high and the antigen concentration is low, there will be no precipitation reaction or agglutination reaction. The precipitation or agglutination reaction is maximum when the antigen antibody concentration is in the equivalence zone. So appropriately, This is the concentration that is required when anybody produces the diagnostic kit for the recognition of antigen and the antibody in the market. So, therefore, one has to take into consideration the equivalence zone of the antigen antibody reaction.